This is the coolest thing.
Hello, Bible Love. So glad y'all are here again for our very, very special summer series, Women in Ministry. As always, I have a fantastic guest for you that is a dear friend of mine, and I'm going to tell you all about her in just a few minutes. But we're going to start off, as we have started off in this series every time, with the prayer attributed to St. Francis. So the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring love. Where there is offense, let me bring pardon. Where there is discord, let me bring union. Where there is error, let me bring truth. Where there is doubt, let me bring faith. Where there is despair, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring your light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Oh God, let me not seek as much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that one receives, it is in self-forgetting that one finds, it is in pardoning that one is pardoned, it is in dying that one is raised to eternal life. Amen.
Amen.
So, friends, today I got to get my dear, dear, dear friend, the Reverend Anna Russell Friedman, to join us. Anna Russell is a canon at Christ Church Cathedral in Nashville, Tennessee. We have good old Alabama roots, the two of us. I've said this before. When you meet people that are around your same age and are female and are priests, you sort of just like gravitate to them, right? Like they're my people. They're my people. And that's what happened with Anna Russell and myself. Plus, we both have double names, and there's all that thing. So, Anna Russell, welcome.
Thank you, dear friend. Thanks for having me. I'm really seriously honored to be here, and I'm super proud to know you and that you're doing this. This is very cool.
I'm super proud to know you. We had this great, when we all lived in Birmingham, we had this great women's group that met, and we just got really, really close. And another person that's been on the podcast that was in that group is Katie Nakamura Ringers, and we'll get some others. But Anna Russell, one of the reasons I wanted, you have a wonderful story to share, but one of the reasons I wanted you to be here is that you're a mom of three boys, and being a priest and being a mom of three boys, that's difficult to like manage all of that. And so before we get into all that, let's start sort of from the beginning, or a little bit from the beginning. You tell us a little bit about your call to be a priest and what that felt like, and it was at a young age. So talk to me about that.
Okay, let me think. That's a great question. And this is one of the things that I am not as great at, is articulating my own my own stuff.
Hard to be on the spot, right?
Right. No, it's good. It's good. It needs to be. I need to do more of this, and more self-reflection in this way anyway. So I was an art major in college, and studio art, and that's always been a passion of mine, something that I would love to get back to and do more of when I have more time someday. But I would say little things happened in my life, even before, college age. I was chosen to I was asked to do the prayer at my 8th grade graduation, little tiny things like that have kind of, looking back now, it's like, oh yeah, oh, that's right. I was close to growing up the, youth director at my parish, and actually grew up at Christ Church in Nashville Cathedral.
Right.
And was also close to the clergy. Did things like, for my winterim time, which is like the time in January in high school that we had to kind of do a field ed placement, did mine at church. Like, wanted to learn more about what happened at church.
Church, like I was, Anna Russell. Like sometimes it's just in you. When I told my dad I wanted to be a priest, he was like, I've been waiting. Like, I knew that was coming, and you were the same way, right?
Like people are like, oh yeah, like we've seen this coming forever. Of course I didn't.
Right.
But I ended up going to Vanderbilt Divinity School with the encouragement of some of the same youth minister, same youth director, and really just to study interfaith dialogue and maybe
But
even
not to be a priest, Anna
not
Russell,
to be a priest. No,
necessarily. Mhm.
not even remotely.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe do some social justice work, some lay ministry, nonprofit, sort of being pulled in all those directions. And my second year there, it was a 3-year program. My second year there, I did my field ed at Holy Trinity in Nashville. And this is a parish that is a small parish in downtown Nashville that I had never set foot in. And I had grown up in Nashville, and was horrified that didn't know more about our community in the Episcopal Church. And Dennis Lloyd was the clergy person there. And he kind of helped me recognize and begin to articulate and discern that word we use. And so I started the process already in divinity school.
That's a really interesting way. You don't hear that as much. Your story's a little different in
It
that
is
way.
totally different. And I'm not sure I went kicking and screaming. I don't think that's true, but I definitely, I remember meeting with like the Commission on Ministry and not knowing all the answers and kind of
Mm,
being like, I'm feeling this, or even with my discernment committee at that point too.
mhm.
I'm feeling this. I can tell you what it's like when I offer communion to some of our brothers and sisters who live on the street. I can tell you what it feels like, but I'm not sure I can articulate the theology or, sort of my call as well. So I had to sort of grow into that. And I'm still growing into that
Mhm.
for sure. But anyway, so it
Well,
was.
Anna Russell, let me ask you this. Were you single at the time? Had you met your spouse?
Krista and I were in divinity school together.
Okay.
So I think we were friends. Go ahead.
You were friends. So you didn't really have that situation that I had of like, who's going to marry an Episcopal priest?
Right.
Y'all
No.
were y'all were on the route together,
Right,
right?
exactly. I hadn't gotten so scary yet.
Yeah.
No one wanted to talk to me.
Well, and the reason I bring this up, Anna Russell helped me so much when I was single. Like, who's going to marry this person? And so that is something to think about, though. For women, I think and we'll get more into this in a minute, but marriage and children, and not that we have this job that nobody else can touch. I don't mean that, but it is different when you think about sort of the regular things in life that you do. So
That's
Christopher
true.
was kind of on board for all of this,
He was
right?
on board for all of this. He saw like the gross undercarriage of, is this something I really want to do? How is this going to change our life? How is this, what is this going to mean for our family?
Mhm.
The good and the bad.
Right, right.
So, yeah, yeah,
So
for sure.
what happened when you finished divinity school?
So I was in the process at that point. I took a year in between, which I think was good. I think that, and rightfully so, that some of my mentors were like, you might need another year to kind of develop this out a little bit
Mhm,
more,
mhm.
and figure out what this calling is about, and sort of double check that it's for ordained ministry, and all that good stuff. So I took a year and did some more field ed work. And then I went to Sewanee for a year and did the Diploma of Anglican Studies program up there, which I needed desperately because I hadn't done anything Episcopalian. Like I
Yeah.
hadn't done any liturgy. I hadn't done any of that good stuff. So
And friends, if you've been a faithful listener this summer, you heard Sarah Audrey Graves talk about this. And actually, Anna Russell and Sarah were there at the same
same
time
time. Yeah.
doing this. So we talked about the difference between my experience of an Episcopal seminary where Sarah and Anna Russell went to divinity school, and then they did a whole nother year to sort of get the Episcopal
Stuff.
experience, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which I desperately needed. And that was wonderful. And I met people like Sarah R.G. Graves and Danielle Thompson, and I was another good friend, who I'd actually known before that, but we got to be closer then, so it was just a really good, wonderful thing to do. I needed it in my life. And Christopher and I were engaged that year. So I got actually, you're going to love this, Mary Belfour. I got ordained and married a week apart.
I love it.
Right? Because why not? And
That's wonderful. Why not have a lot going on in your life at the same
Why not
time?
do it all at once?
So you
Uh,
got ordained, and then is that when you moved to Alabama, or did you serve a church?
exactly.
Okay.
So we didn't have a lot of parishes with openings in the Diocese of Tennessee at the time, and I believe I think I can share this. We had some, but I'm not sure that they would. I'm not sure that they were comfortable with a young woman yet.
Yeah.
So that was sort of made clear to me in a very loving way, and I went, okay, that's fine. Like I'm not gonna, go blasting in, and so I
And
was
that is
released.
the reality. I mean, and I think in 2022 it's better, but I had that same experience in Alabama. I mean, I'm flat out told there's a few parishes that are just not going to be okay
Ready.
with
Yep,
this.
not ready for it. And what is so awesome about that piece of the story is I ended up in Carloville, Alabama. So we moved down to Montgomery. I did
Tiny
my
place.
tiny little place down south of Selma. I believe as far as like the line goes, it's like the last parish before you hit Central Gulf Coast Diocese.
You're right.
And they were all about it. And they were like, let's do it. Let's have a young woman come. So Christopher and I would come every 2 weeks down. We would get in the car and listen to Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me. And we would truck down into pass down in Selma. And we would do our service and visit with the folks and then come back to Montgomery.
Would,
Um,
would you say they taught you how to be a priest?
oh my God, without question. And they were so gentle and loving and helped me to make mistakes, let me make mistakes. I mean, it was like the sermons were awful. I can't even begin to tell. I didn't know. I also was still a deacon at this point. So they were getting a clergy person who couldn't even really do the whole Eucharist.
Right.
So
I mean,
they were fine with it.
St. Michael's in Fayette, shout out to them. Same thing with me, and they just embraced every mistake. And I
Every
will for the rest of my life, and I know you feel this way about St. Paul's, they taught me how to be a priest, and I will be grateful the rest of my life for
the
them.
rest of my life. It is so, it is so profound and it means so much. So I was ordained to the priesthood in their parish, and they
Love,
threw
no.
a heck of a party. We had Bloody Marys on the lawn. I mean, it was just like they wanted to celebrate, for me and for my family and for the church. And Bishop Sloan came down and Bishop Bauerschmidt. So they had two bishops, on the porch. And it was it was amazing. They gave me my first set of stoles. So I have these stoles that one of the members, beautifully sewn and embroidered my initials into the back of that I will have the rest of my life. And it means more to me than anything.
I love it.
So yeah, it's a wonderful place.
Small parishes are a gem and a gift, and we don't celebrate them enough, I don't think. I like I said, those 2 years in Fayette, I'll never forget. I know that. I mean, they just have so much to give to the world, and thank God for small parishes.
Thank God for small parishes because they can help teach us and lead us. I mean, they are.
And
It's
they
so.
do the work. They are the hands and feet of
Oh,
Jesus.
holy cow! Yes, yes. Amen, sister.
So then Christopher is an attorney and needs to move to Birmingham,
He
right?
is.
Is that
Yes.
what happens?
So he decided he was doing. So he has his MTS in American religious history,
Mhm.
and he decided that it was something he'd always loved too was like youth and government and debate and all of that. That's always been a passion of his. He was very involved in national affairs at the Y growing up, which is a big deal in Alabama. And so he said, I want to apply to law school and I'm going to apply to Cumberland at Sanford, which is in Birmingham. And I thought, okay, we could shoot for that. Let's try. Let's see what happens. And he loved it, Mary Balfour. He loved it. So I'm so glad that he went for it. And we ended up moving to Birmingham, where we had our first two babies at All Saints in Homewood, which was such a blessing. We used to drive up there and be like, well, where would we want to be? Let's just dream. Where would we
Well,
want to be
I
somewhere?
love that, Anna Russell, because you both need to have your own vocations and for, forget the children. I mean, we're going to get them in here in a
Oh
minute.
Lord, yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, that you were able to support and love each other and both live into your calling, I think is hard sometimes for married people, whether you're priests or attorneys or whatever, and that you were willing to kind of dig into that. So I'm really grateful that worked out for y'all.
Me too. I'm glad that we could do it together. I think, like you said, like we didn't sort of pre-do it before we knew each other. We kind of grew into it with each other. And there were
Then you
plenty
have
of times.
babies.
And then that's right. And then all the babies. And then all the babies. So we had two of our boys in Birmingham at All Saints. And then when we ended up moving to Nashville later, more recently, we had another baby up here. So we're chock full.
You are. That's the next thing I want to talk about. Talk about what it's like to be a priest and live into your calling as a priest, as a mother of three, because you have a job that you love, but you're not like the rector of a church right now, right? But you probably can't be because of where you are as a mother. And so talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind.
I would be happy to. And I'll try. I think that it has been a gift because I feel closer to people who are in this kind of figuring it out time in their lives with little ones. And also I feel like I can welcome them to church. In a way that I might not be able to, and sort of feel that anxiety of like, how am I going to get my children dressed and up and sort of the everyday, and they're going to scream the whole time in church. What am I going to do? And it's like, no, bring them, just bring them. So I can relate to that and feel comfortable with children more now, obviously, than I ever have. Juggling it is not an easy thing. We constantly are working on the balance. So our oldest is 9 now. So we've had 9 years of doing this thing together in both of our vocations, and we still don't have it right. We still don't, we still work on it every day. I am reached a point now where I, want to do it more part-time, which I am in Nashville, and that's beautiful. I need to have some more space to kind of pick up my kids from soccer practice and drive them to and from camp. And I want to be in the hookup line. Like we call it the hookup line up here, by the way, the pickup line.
I love it.
I know. But in Birmingham, it was definitely hard. One of the blessings was having a preschool downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say it was a blessing and a curse because there's something that happens with, and you know this so well, with preachers' kids, where there's a little bit more scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
People sort of expect them to act a certain way, and they don't always fall into that category real well, that box. So at times it was hard because I felt that pressure. I felt that pressure to have my, children be well behaved and, do well in preschool and, not get in fights with other children and, all that good stuff that of course little boys and girls are going to do too. But I think, I don't know, Mary Balfour. I think that we've just made it work with the help we had some really beautiful nannies too in Birmingham that we depended on. It was a support system. We desperately needed a support. We had to name that. I am not really good with asking for help. Christopher does a better job with that actually, or at least naming when it's time to. Naming when we.
There's a lot of beautiful things that you just said in that. Asking for help, nannies, au pairs, whatever it is. I interviewed somebody yesterday that was talking about that as well. But also, I love what you said about like being able to welcome and that hospitality of ministry in that, because you totally get it. Like, I have a hard time with that sometimes. I'm going to be completely honest when I'm like, why are these people not at church? And they're like, listen, we get up every day of the week. And, Sundays is like sometimes the only day we have to sleep in. And like, I feel like sometimes I'm a little rough on them. And I'm grateful for what you're saying because you're like, I get it. And I can I'm not rough, but you know what I mean? It's just hard for me to relate. It's just hard for me to relate sometimes. And I love that you are able to say to other mamas and daddies, like, I get it. This is super hard. And we just want you to be here, whatever that looks like, in a Spider-Man costume, running up and down the aisles, whatever it is, we want you to be here.
Exactly. We I work with another woman in ministry who I adore, Lissa Smith, who has been up here. She worked with Becca Stevens at St. Augustine's for a while here in Nashville. And she and I were welcoming and introducing ourselves to a group that was going to be baptized. And we've started this thing where it's, we kind of bring the group together when we have like a season of baptisms like we did at Easter this past year.
Right.
And she stood up in front of all the mamas and the daddies and the children who were sitting in the pews getting to know each other. And she said something to the effect of, do not worry. Like, this is your church. This is the children's church just as much as it is, Mr. Jones in the back row, who you are helping to remind what it's like to have little ones in our midst. So let them be, let their little voices be heard. And she just said it. And you could just see in the parents' faces, Mary Balfour, like the anxiety just lift
I
off of,
love
I mean, you can physically see sort of the Holy Spirit doing his work, and it was wonderful.
I love that. And I think that's interesting that you're now like realizing that's really a part of your ministry,
Completely,
and
completely.
that's not just a priest job. Like that's something all of us can do, right? I always say whenever I do a baptism, unless they're on fire, don't take them out of here,
Right,
Uh,
exactly.
and but I think that's something good for all our listeners to hear is that we need to be encouraging of those voices. We need to be encouraging of every voice, even the little ones.
Yeah.
And we want you here, and we understand they're not perfect, and we don't want them to be. We want them to be themselves and who they are.
And who they are,
You
and
can
bring them.
even say that even more, Anna Russell, as a mom, and I love that that's become a part of your ministry and really a calling for you. That's beautiful.
Right. Thank you, friend. Right now, it's a big piece of it. It's a
Yeah,
big piece of it. Of saying, y'all just come as you are. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. But you're still getting to do all the sacramental things that you are called to do as a priest and getting to be with people in the way. But it's more of a part time thing, which is good for you right now. And that may change later when your boys are older. But
exactly.
I'm so grateful there's still like room at the table for everybody wherever they are in their life. Does that make
Me
sense?
too. Yes, totally. It is. I feel like we can do a growing edge of our church is, I mean, our church at large is to have more of the part-time clerical spaces
Hmm.
for, busy parents or for folks who do something, we do a great job in our diaconate ministry. I feel like with this on some level, I know there's definitely room to grow there too. But we could also do a better job at making space for priests who want to do, part-time work and also raise their crazy 3 children. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm grateful to Christ Church in Nashville that has been something that you could do, and I hope that every parish and every job, will be more open to that kind of work. So, do you
yeah.
love what you do right now, and you're
I love
happy
what
and
I
you're
do.
fulfilled,
I am
and
totally happy and
still getting
fulfilled.
to raise your voice the way you want to, and the
Yes,
way
I
you feel
definitely feel
called.
like that. I definitely feel like that. And right now it looks like including the children, having the babies be a part of it, and making sure that, um, they know that we want them to be a part of it. That's just as much a piece of this. So,
I love it. I love it.
amen.
And you got your family around you now that you're back in Nashville, which I know
Yes,
helps a
yes.
lot to have a great support system, as we talked about a little bit earlier.
It is super hard to raise babies without your parents
Yeah.
or without, some family support or some good friend support. And
Yeah.
we have that here, and I'm grateful for it because it's hard. It's hard when you don't have it. So, yeah.
Well, okay, let me ask you this part. I didn't prepare you for this, but I bet you will have a great answer.
Oh,
Tell
Lord.
me what is one of your favorite things that you're doing in ministry right now?
You did not prepare me
I
for
didn't.
this. Dun, dun, dun,
Just
dun, dun,
did
dun.
VBS. Tell me about that. How was that?
VBS was awesome. So VBS, I never knew that I would actually enjoy organizing that kind of thing. I did the camp counselor babysitting thing growing up, but I'm not sure it was a love of mine. I'm not sure it was like, something that I
Beyond
was
the children.
no. Yeah. It definitely took me having my own to sort of get, how to
Mhm.
communicate better with children. Um, but I loved it. It's so much fun to do VBS and have a craft that matches, the story of Gideon. It was such an interesting VBS last week, and talking about the Israelites, and it was just a really cool mashup of a bunch of different stories,
Watching
and
their little minds grow.
watching little minds, talk about God's strength, and God doesn't always choose the strongest or who we perceive as the strongest. Sometimes the weakest among us might be the ones who are lifted up to lead, and that kind of a thing. And it's just really neat watching them kind of apply it to their
Yeah.
own. I also have grown in the Catechesis of the Good Shepherd program, which I know you know about. It's a big deal in Birmingham and a lot of our parishes down there too. But in Christ Church in Nashville, we also have this as our children's formation program, and I adore it. It is helping me learn how to speak to my own children and wonder alongside my children about God, and kind of invite God into spaces that I hadn't thought about. Seminary doesn't really do a great job of that sometimes, helping us. So it's
Totally
definitely
agree.
right. It's definitely been a where the rubber meets the road. How do you wonder
Well,
about
I
this
love that
stuff?
you said that because I would imagine there's a dynamic, like if you're a priest and you're a mom, like how do I get that in my children, get God in my children? And, do I rely on other people? Do I do that myself? Like, how do you like do all that? And I think Emily Evans was on and she talked about catechesis of the
Yes,
Good Shepherd. Like, I know that, that must feel some pressure, but sometimes I have to remind people like it's not just the church's job to get God to people. Like, right, when we do the baptismal covenant, we promise that we're going
we
to all be there,
we
and so I'm sure there's some people feeding into your children as well that are not
oh,
just you and Christopher,
totally.
and that's
Oh,
the joy of
completely.
being in a church,
Yes. We need those people. We need more of those people. we need, there are definitely moments where we look at each other and go, we are not doing this. This is not working. This is not whatever we're hoping is not how it's, turning out. And we need all of the other, beautiful souls and beautiful people in our children's lives. Even just teaching them kindness and, golly, there's so much, Mary Balfour, that I'm learning. I say more than I should nowadays. It takes a village, but I completely believe it. It's just, oh my gosh, it really takes all of us to raise these
And the
children.
church can be that village.
Yeah,
So, like, if you're listening to this and you don't go to church, walk in those red doors, be brave. There'll be some people around you that want to feed into your children, or if you're single or you're widowed or whatever the situation will be, find that community because that village in the church based in God is a beautiful thing.
it is.
Anna Russell, thank you for your voice. Thank
Oh
you
my God,
for your ministry. Um, Thank you for figuring out a way to continue to love God's children while still raising your precious boys and having a great relationship with your spouse. I admire you, and I am really, really grateful for your friendship. So thank you for being here
oh my
today.
gosh, Mary Balfour, thanks for having me, friend. I appreciate it.
Well, listeners, remember, as always, we love you, but most importantly, God does.